Hey everybody, this is Diane. Welcome to Biters.
And this is Marnell, and I was going to have a super cool, like the Old West whistle, but I completely blew it.
Well, before we get too deep into things, I would like to say a warm welcome to Freeman of the Zombie Cast and the Zombie Research Society. He sent me a message on Biters last week and was just very warm and really appreciative of the podcast that we do, and I was grateful for his feedback.
Yes, I went and liked the page also. So it's Zombie Cast on Facebook.
I listened to last week's episode and it was very broad ranging. They talked about a lot of stuff other than Fear the Walking Dead, and it was pretty funny.
Okay, so it's not just a Walking Dead.
No. And they dropped all the F-bombs that I would love to drop. I've kind of gotten myself into a place where I don't swear when I podcast, which is pretty amazing because I have a bit of gutter mouth, but...
I know, but I can't even clean up my language around kids, but I do very well on the podcast. I'm so behind in listening to podcasts because it is fiscal year end and I'm a state accountant. So my life is crazy right now. And it's just very hard to start and stop all day long in a podcast. I'm not in a place where I can just put my headphones on and work. I get interrupted all day.
I hear ya. I have quite a bit of time where I'm charting, but I can't concentrate on putting a chart together and listening to a podcast at the same time, so I just don't try. I listen to music when I'm charting.
Yeah. If I go into work on Saturday, I can listen to podcasts and get work done, but I've been trying not to go in on Saturday because I know that the 7-day work week is coming.
Right.
I've been preserving my energy. So we are podcasting Fear the Walking Dead, Season 5, Episode 3, Humbug's Gulch.
Yes. So I said I was going to surprise you with a little higher rating than I had last week. And I will say, after some thought, I gave it a solid 4 bowel blockades out of 5.
That was my rating for last week's episode.
A 4 out of 5?
Yes.
So you rated this one higher.
I did. I did like this episode. I got exactly what I wanted. I wanted Dwight back, and I want the story about him and Sherry. So here we go.
Right?
I rated it a 4.3 Southern Pinky Pulls.
We'll get into that menu of tricks that June was reading.
Right? They sounded like drinks to me. Maybe that's just the alcoholic talking.
They sounded like drinks or things at the brothel.
Right?
Wah, wah, wah.
That's awesome.
So I do have some numbers. There was actually an article published in TV by the Numbers today, and the ratings are pretty steady for this episode. So it had 1.756 million views, 500,000 in the 18 to 49 group, and it actually took the number 2 spot this week, at least for Sunday. And you'll never guess what it was beat out by.
WWE again?
90 Day Fiancé, Happily Ever After?
Oh.
On Terrible Life Choices at just over 2 million.
TLC. Oh. I think that's where Dr. Pimple Popper is too, isn't it?
I think somehow her network surprised me.
Yeah.
I never have gotten into those just because I've been there, done that. So, I don't need to watch it. I can do it if I want to.
Ugh. More power to you. I could not do that.
It's not my world now. My world is brains and nerves. So
there are 4 sisters, and 2 of us went into the medical field, and 2 of us became accountants.
Oh, I never thought about it from that perspective. That's pretty funny.
It is. It's just 2 totally separate fields.
But we're all smart asses.
Oh, yeah. We get that from great grandma.
I have been spending time with our other sister, with Amy, and I've been really enjoying it. And she's pretty funny.
Oh, what movie did you go see, by the way?
Oh, so we didn't end up seeing a movie because, and this is something that our listeners, good Lord, I can't talk tonight, might be interested in. The Dead Don't Die didn't open here.
Nor here. It was a limited release.
Oh, so
why?
Is it going to have a broader theatrical release, or?
I would imagine so, because look at all the star power that's in that movie, and it just went to waste on a limited number of screens.
I wonder how it did. I didn't pay attention.
It got very mixed reviews with the critics, but I'm saying this as somebody who critiques a show on a podcast. I never listen to the critics.
I'm looking to see if there's anything in terms of news for it.
I was actually really surprised that it didn't open here.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I mean, I expected it to have a broader release. Oh God, it only got 5.9 out of 10 on IMDb.
Ooh.
Yikes. I'm still gonna watch it.
Oh, definitely.
And hopefully it'll come here, so.
I'm hoping so.
Roger Ebert gave it 3 out of 4 stars.
That's actually pretty high for him.
Huh.
Yeah, I just feel like it was put to waste on such a limited release. I think, and this is probably wrong, I think it only opened on like 1,000 screens or something nationwide or something really stupid like that.
I find that really surprising, with Bill Murray being one of the main people in the cast.
And Adam Driver, Chloe Sevigny, yeah. Iggy Pop was in it, for God's sake.
Right. I saw that. I was like, wait a minute, is Iggy Pop still alive?
Yeah, they didn't have to do any makeup to make him look like a zombie.
I had him mixed up in my brain with Lou Reed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, it got very, very mixed reviews.
Well, I'm hoping that we'll get a chance to cover it for the show.
Do you just have the one theater in Wasilla?
In Wasilla, yes.
How many?
There are theaters in Anchorage, but I probably honestly won't drive an hour and a half to get to a movie.
Oh, no. How many screens does your theater have?
I don't know. Maybe 10?
Okay.
Maybe 12?
So we have just the 2 theaters here still, and a total of 7 screens between the 2 theaters. So I can kind of see why it didn't come here on its release, but like we said, it's got the star power behind it. So
yeah, I don't know. I was surprised that I couldn't find it. I was expecting to go to see it.
Yeah. They'll open every stupid little kids movie in the theaters that I've never heard of, but they can't get me one zombie movie.
Oh God, and what did Phil tell us today tanked even worse than Dark Phoenix?
Men in Black 3. Oh,
ouch.
Yeah. And that's surprising because it has, what's his name? Who played Thor?
Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, Chris Hemsworth.
I didn't realize he was in Men in Black 3.
Yep. Chris Hemsworth, Tessa Thompson, the voice of Camille Nanjiani. Yeah.
Well, I'll probably wait for video for that, but especially if it's worse than Dark Phoenix was.
Right. And I was saying I really only watched the first Men in Black movie in the theaters. So it just kind of didn't occur to me to see it in the theater.
I would have to say I'm pretty much just seeing Marvel movies in the theater these days.
Yeah. Like, I think I go to a lot of movies. I probably don't, but I do actually, for stupid kid movies, I do want to see Secret Life of Pets too, because the first one was so funny. But I will not go to the theater for a kids movie because I don't like being around kids.
Which we'll get into that for this episode.
Kids.
Yes.
Oh my
I
goodness.
totally thought of you.
Right?
Kids are vile.
What do I keep saying?
All right, so back to Humbug's Gulch. So we know where the title came from. But did you
So,
know? Oh, go ahead.
oh yeah, okay, go ahead.
Well, so I was surprised. I actually looked up the meaning of the word humbug, and I
Me too.
didn't know that it's a hypocrite or a deceptive or false talk or behavior.
Yep,
I mean, I've
it's
just always thought of it as the expression bah humbug.
right. And I thought it may have actually been some sort of bug, like one of those bugs that you only see in like Louisiana or Florida that's like the size of a football and like makes a terrible noise and of course attacks people at night. Like a palmetto bug or something.
No, I knew it wasn't a bug, but I didn't realize that it was anything beyond the expression bah humbug.
Right. Because, I mean, if you Google it, you do get a lot of bah humbug gifs and stuff. Yeah, deceive, trick, delude, mislead, fool, hoodwink, dupe, hoax.
Yes, it could be a verb or a noun.
Bamboozle. So yeah, humbug. And so what that leads me to think of for like Humbug's Gulch is, it means to, to trick, and they do trick shots. So that's kind of where I got that. But what do we also see in this episode that's deceptive or misleading?
Well, I think about the kids.
The kids.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know if I was reading a little bit too much into the title, but I think the kids when I think humbug. Because
interesting. Now knowing the meaning of humbug.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. And of course, a gulch is a narrow, steep-sided ravine marking the course of a fast stream. So, I mean, maybe that kind of reminds me of cattle chute, where you yeah.
Or like in our season 9 of Walking Dead, a choke point.
Right. Which, I mean, the kids are kind of doing this perimeter.
They're kind of creating their own little choke point. Interesting.
They're herding our group into this one area. So, I don't know. Maybe I read too much into the Humbug Gulch, but that's what I got.
I like it. I wouldn't have gone there.
And of course, it's really just the name of a Wild West show town. And Humbug's Gulch, I couldn't actually find as a real place. But of course, there are little ghost towns that do these Wild West shows all over the Southwest. So it's kind of like Buffalo Bill's Wild West shows.
I have a little tidbit about that.
Ooh.
Yeah. We'll actually get into it
Rotting potpourri
when we talk about Whisperer's Corner.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So our writer was a woman named Ashley Cardiff, and I thought it was really interesting. She is really new to the writing game, apparently. She's got this as a writer credit, and then she did some work on a series called The Girlfriend's Guide to Divorce.
Interesting.
But she's basically got 2 writer credits, and that's it.
Huh.
It looks like she may potentially be doing another episode for this season. On the Walking Dead wiki, they had this episode listed and then TBA.
Interesting. I kind of want to see it. Follows a best-selling author of a self-help book series who hides her recent separation as she starts to navigate her life as a single woman in her 40s in Los Angeles. Huh.
It's lower on my list than Game of Thrones.
You have so much to watch.
I have so much to watch. I'm only into season 3, so...
And on your recommendation, I started Lorena on Amazon.
God. Isn't it horrifying?
Oh my goodness. So I actually have to watch because there's a lot of like subtitles on the screen.
I told you it's not something that you can work and watch. You have to watch.
Yes, exactly. So I am one episode into that, and it takes me back. I vividly remember the Lorena Bobbitt story, and I was only like 13 or 14 at the time.
You've met Little John. I know, folks, this has nothing to do with zombies, but trust me, if you like true crime, it is totally worth watching. Or if you're just a horrified child of the 90s, it's totally worth watching.
Right? Oh, the start of tabloid television.
Mm-hmm, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, our director was Coleman Domingo.
Yes, this is his second episode.
Mm-hmm. So I had to look it up. I remember that he directed last season, but I couldn't remember which one it was. And it was episode 12 entitled Week.
Yep. Yeah, that was right after another big storm. I think it's funny. We had a storm in this episode, and we were dealing with the aftermath of the big storm in the episode he last directed.
Oh, good catch. And I'm assuming, I didn't go back and watch Week, but I'm assuming that was the one where Filthy Woman got introduced to us.
I don't...
Because she talks about being weak.
Okay. I don't know if that was the first time we saw her.
Or if maybe they just expounded upon her story.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I just wanted to say again, and I still haven't watched it because the list is long and I get sidetracked down rabbit holes like Lorena, but I really need to see if Beale Street Could Talk, which is a film that Coleman Domingo was in last year.
That's right.
It's supposed to be very good.
That's right. That was the one where all the wives of like the former mobsters or gangsters have to get together, right?
No, it's based on a James Baldwin novel.
Oh, okay.
Who is a famous Black author.
There was a couple of things that he was in last year that have been on my list, but I don't think they actually came to our theater. So,
I think if Beale Street Could Talk got pretty wide release, but I don't know that it would have made it to a small town theater.
Right.
So I'm looking it up. A young woman embraces her pregnancy while she and her family set out to prove her childhood friend and lover innocent of a crime he didn't commit.
Yeah, that's not the one I was thinking of.
Yeah, no, I didn't think it was. So, a couple of other things. He's got 3 upcoming films, it looks like. Zola, Lucy in the Sky, and The Good Committee.
The God Committee.
The God Committee. Excuse me, you're right. The God Committee. Yeah, so Coleman Domingo is always busy.
So the synopsis for Zola, and I hope that he's not Zola. A stripper named Zola embarks on a wild road trip to Florida.
I don't know. I kind of hope he is Zola.
He plays a character named X. Just X.
So, I looked him up because I was just curious, and I think we talked about this the last time that we talked about Coleman, but he's an ordained minister in the Universal Life Church.
I do remember that, yeah.
And apparently he said on Talking Dead, and I don't remember this, that he spent time as an aerial performer in a traveling circus.
I don't remember talking about that.
Doesn't that surprise you?
That floors me. He just, he's in good shape, don't get me wrong, but to do certain sports and activities, you have to have... You develop a certain, physique, you always have a swimmer's body or the legs of a marathon runner, or I can't see him as an aerial acrobat.
Well, who knows how many years ago it was.
That's funny.
So we decided that we would make Austin Emilio our featured cast.
Yes, we did. We have done him before, but
It's been a long time.
it's been a long time. And of course, he is our new crossover character from Walking Dead Prime. Um, so of course we know him from that. And I thought I don't remember talking about this when we talked about him before, but he was actually a big skateboarder.
I didn't remember that either, and I kind of did a little bit of a deeper dive looking at some of the stuff that was on YouTube. So he was known for working on a movie called The Devil's Toy in 2011, which was a skateboarding video that was made in Austin. He actually was born and raised in Austin, which I think is super interesting because, that's where we're filming Fear the Walking Dead.
Right.
That's kind of his old stomping grounds. He was also sponsored by a well-known skateboarder, not someone that I would know because honestly, I'm kind of new to the skateboarding world. He was on a skateboarding podcast called the 9 Club Skateboarding Podcast, and he was also interviewed by Trans World Skateboarding, and all of those things, Devil's Toy, the podcast, and the skateboarding interview are all on YouTube.
Oh, good, because they are not part of his IMDb credits. So even under his starring as himself titles.
If you go on YouTube and put in Austin Emilio skateboarding, those are like the first 3 things that come up.
He's got a couple of pictures on his Instagram of him on a skateboard or with a skateboard, but nothing that would make me, be like, oh, he's a skater, And his Twitter, by the way, he has not posted to his Twitter since October 2017. So go to his Instagram.
That sounds like me. That's like the biter's Twitter feed, unfortunately.
Right? So you can find him on Instagram at Austin Emilio. And he's got some great stuff from the show and just kind of general life stuff. It's kind of a normal Instagram, except that you see him without his Dwight makeup, and that always throws me.
He's so thin. I caught a little bit of an interview with him, like a 3-minute interview where he was talking about his crossover, and I thought, oh my God, he could just blow away.
I kind of remember thinking that or seeing that on Walking Dead Prime, that he was that thin, but it always throws me when you see him without the burn. Mm-hmm. He's very recognizable, but it's a little surreal.
I will have to say there was not a whole heck of a lot with him talking about being on Fear on YouTube. I kind of looked for some interviews. There was an hour-long panel with the Fear cast and with a couple of folks like Michael Satrazemis and Scott Gimple. But I will be honest and say it was an hour long, and it was hosted by Yvette Nicole Brown, so I decided not to watch it. Not because I have this loathing of Yvette Nicole Brown, but because I really thought last night that I had a better way to spend an hour.
Okay. Except that you had an extra hour this week because there was no Talking Dead.
I know, but I got kept up all night last night by a dog who has decided that he has Alzheimer's and is sundowning, so I really didn't get an extra hour.
Wait, what happens do they just get restless at night?
Oh my God, he wanders and cries all night.
Aww.
It's terrible.
That's sad.
It's very sad. So I did not take the extra hour that I actually ended up being wide awake to watch the video.
Yeah, I think I probably wouldn't have either.
I will say I did find out watching either the beginning of that, I think the beginning of that, because I did watch a few minutes of it. The first 4 seasons of Fear the Walking Dead are available on Hulu.
Oh.
So for anyone who hasn't watched or who wants to rewatch, that's a place to access them.
Excellent. Yeah, there's really not that much about him out there, uh, other than the skateboarding and his IMDb credits. And the only other thing that I think that he'd be well known for, and this is what it says everywhere, is he was in a movie called Everybody Wants Some.
I was going to ask you if you'd seen that, since you see so many more movies than I do.
No, and what's funny is I know that it's like supposedly a sequel or I think it's a sequel to Dazed and Confused. It's Dazed and Confused to like took place in the 70s, and Everybody Wants Some is sort of the same shtick in the 80s.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. I looked up the plot, and it says it's about college baseball players, so I would not have made the connection.
Yeah, I remember when it came out, but it's one of those that it's like, I'll probably catch it on cable someday. And it'll lose a lot on cable because it's probably got an R rating.
Right. It's probably going to be heavily edited.
Oh, definitely.
So I did want to say that he's got 3 things coming up, and I didn't catch if they were films. Aside from one of them, it's a short film. So a piece called Holler, a piece called OK Sugar, and a piece called Mercy Black. And OK Sugar is actually the short, and he is the director of that short.
I did see that. Yeah. And I didn't notice the Mercy Black one because it's actually credited to him before Fear the Walking Dead is.
Aha. So he must have produced that before. He must have been in that before he did his crossover.
Right.
So the only other thing that I had written down is that the little interview that I did watch, he described himself as being, quote, pretty stressed out for the first couple of years that he played Dwight.
Why?
Well, I thought it would be terrible to spend 2 years in a job completely stressed out. And he basically said, it was because Walking Dead was such a huge deal and he was stepping into such a big world. He felt a lot of responsibility.
Oh, wow. Totally kind of on that topic, but different show. A lot of the cast from Game of Thrones went through similar stuff. The guy that plays Jon Snow, of course, has gone into a treatment facility because of stress and substance abuse, because he had so much stress. And he said that it really, when the show took a turn to really focus on his character, that he felt that stress. And Sophie Turner, she said that she was depressed and had anxiety issues all through her teens because growing up on screen is a really hard thing, and especially when you're in such a big show.
Right.
And then
they were all so young.
Right. And then the guy that played Robb Stark had just came out and said that he was glad that his character was killed off, spoiler alert, earlier seasons, because the pressure is just so great. And I would imagine it would be the same thing with The Walking Dead, because it was such a juggernaut. It's kind of died down, but
but it's still iconic.
Yeah, still diehard fans, still, tons of appearances every year.
And people like us who spend hours a week talking about it.
Exactly.
So I hope for his sake that it has gotten easier. I hope he's not so stressed out by his work.
Yes. And I love the character. I'm glad he has joined our cast on Fear the Walking Dead. And I really hope they do his story arc justice, because I've been excited and I enjoyed this episode. So
I have so much good to say.
Yeah.
But first, I will take you into Whisperer's Corner.
Go for it.
So I kind of feel like I am contractually obligated now to discuss the Forbes interviews or the Forbes reviews.
Yes.
Did you read it?
It was sent to me. I have not got a chance to read it, but the person who sent it to me is like, This guy's an idiot.
So this guy, the guy who wrote this week's review, is a different reviewer than the person that I cited last week. This guy's name is Paul Tassi, and he said, Fear the Walking Dead literally killed what made it interesting, i.e. Madison. And he says that Morgan, quote, heralded this big, bad, boring era of fear.
He's watching a different show.
I would have to say, going back, when I think about the last 4 seasons, I felt like there was a ton of promise in season 1, and I felt like it was not realized.
Right. There was such a buildup. It was like, this is going to be Walking Dead on the water.
Mm-hmm.
And, I assumed, I think we all kind of assumed that it was going to be mainly a water-based series, but, that ended at the end of season 1.
Yeah, I'm trying to think, I don't think we had any water in, well, I mean, we had the time on the dam, but we didn't really have any oceanic water past season 1.
We went from the Abigail to the ranch.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, and, it's funny. They're telling the story of the Walking Dead in the U.S., and we've been to Mexico, and now supposedly we are going north. So, yeah. But yeah, I think there was a lot of buildup, and it had a lot to live up to, but it had the freedom of not having source material, so you could do anything. And they have, but yeah, I don't think it quite lived up to its own hype.
So it's very interesting that this guy from Forbes had such a different take, and that he was heavily invested in the beginning seasons and not so much now.
Yeah, completely opposite of us.
Yeah. So in other news, former Walking Dead star Austin Abrams has a role in a series that's being produced by Amazon called Chemical Hearts. And it's based on a novel called Our Chemical Hearts by a woman named Crystal Sutherland. Do you remember who Austin Abrams was?
I don't.
We know him as Ron. Jesse's kid. Sam's brother.
Oh,
Mom.
Yep. As soon as you said Sam, the kids always stick out.
So he's pretty recognizable when you even see his new pictures. It's like, oh yeah, I recognize that kid. But it sounds like he's got a pretty substantial role in this Amazon production. And he also has a role in an upcoming, I think it's a series on HBO called Euphoria. So good for him. There's life beyond The Walking Dead.
Yes. The Walking Dead does give some pretty good careers, some amazing jump starts. Mm-hmm. They have a tendency to start people in directing and writing and producing. So good.
So next up, the Fear the Walking Dead showrunners explain John Dory's trick shot, the San Antonio split.
I was wondering, I was like, I'm sure the split thing is possible. I'm just a little dubious on him hitting both marks.
So we'll talk a little more about the San Antonio split.
Okay.
But apparently it was potentially a real thing at the old Wild West shows. They actually did some research at the Autry Museum of the Wild West in LA, and apparently they found something substantiating this trick. They really wanted to do something that was a legit trick from an old Wild West show.
And, the only thing I have to compare it to is if you've ever watched professional trick shots for pool. It's amazing. Like, what people can do is amazing. So I think the only thing that would limit you is, I don't know, the physics with the gun.
I will tell you that the San Antonio split got quite a bit of mixed review in social media.
I didn't like it at first, but after I watched it again, I'm like, okay, whatever.
I have more to say about the whole Wild West thing. So, Austin Emilio said in an interview that he would like to see a Daryl Dixon crossover on Fear the Walking Dead. I don't think we'll see it, but I thought it was pretty funny that he said it.
Yeah, and of course he and Norman Reedus are friends. I did like their episode of Ride.
I didn't watch it.
Oh no! I liked it.
I haven't watched all episodes of Ride, but the ones that I've invested in, I've really enjoyed.
I just loved it. They were sitting down. He and Norman Reedus were sitting down and having lunch, and a kid, probably like 9 or 10, approached him and actually asked for Austin Emilio's autograph rather than Norman
that's
Reedus.
Awesome.
I was like, oh, that's so cool. Because I'm sure Norman Reedus is so used to it, and Austin Emilio, like I said, I recognize him without the makeup. It's so odd because I'm so used to seeing him with the makeup, and they do such a good job.
Well, he probably did not expect sitting at a table with Norman Reedus that he was going to be the one who was approached.
Right.
So a couple other quick things in Whisperer's Corner. Coleman Domingo has an interview at comicbook.com about what it took to direct this episode and kind of what he's learned directing. So if people want to take a look at that, it's out there. And the only other thing that I found tonight when I did a quick checkup of the news before we signed on, Digital Spy actually has an article where they quote Andrew Chambliss, or Chambliss, and he says there are reasons that both Morgan and Dwight ended up in the same area in Texas. And he actually talks about the forces that drove them there. So apparently there's more to the story, and it's not a coincidence that Morgan and Dwight ended up in the same area.
Oh, very cool.
And of course they tease a little bit more about CRM and the 3 interlocking circles and all of that.
Yeah, we'll kind of get to a little bit of that.
Ah, okay, very good. Well, that said, why don't we go ahead and launch into our goods, bads, and uglies? Unless you've got more for Whisperer's Corner.
I have a little bit of Whisperer's Corner. So the final season of Preacher comes out August 4th.
Yay!
Yay. Yeah, we get one more season. So remember to listen to us on our Preacher podcast, The Good News, the good news according to AMC's Preacher.
No. It's the good news, the gospel according to AMC's Preacher.
Thank you. It's super long. It's like Tu Wong Fu. Thanks for everything, Julie Newmar.
What can I say? I'm always wordy.
And I feel like it's been forever since we podcasted it.
It has been.
Yeah.
And I was thinking back the other night, actually, when our sister and her husband came out for dinner, I thought, if we watch something, maybe I'll try to get them to watch the first episode of Preacher. And I thought of all of the series that I've watched that didn't live up to its promise.
Yeah.
Although I would have to say Good Omens is right up there, and we still have to talk about that.
See, and now I almost don't even want to read the book because it'll spoil the show. I liked the show.
Yeah.
So you will not be seeing the last of Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg's material after Preacher. They actually have a new series coming out.
Oh, really?
Yes, it's called The Boys. And it takes a look at the dark side of being a superhero and those who keep them in check.
Huh, that sounds interesting.
It does. There is a trailer online, so you can go and take a look at that. It's got Elizabeth Shue, Carl Urban. Those are the ones that I recognize the most. Directed by 10 Cloverfield Lane's Dan Trachtenberg. So that comes out July 26th. And the the picture that they have online for it is a guy who's like screaming and his face is splattered with blood. So it is definitely a Seth and Evan show.
Well, and we talked about them last week. They're doing the film for that Kirkman property.
Right.
Oblivion Song.
They are busy, busy.
So what is this going to be on, this new series that's coming out?
You would have to ask that, wouldn't you? Amazon Prime.
Okay, I might actually watch that.
Yeah. I love Carl Urban, so I will probably watch it. He was in a really underrated show that didn't last for too long. It took place in the future, and he was a cop that had like an android partner, and the androids then were, way more human, like they were, had personalities and feelings and things like that. So, but they were still stigmatized as kind of, not being human. So it was a really interesting show, and I wish it had gotten more seasons, but it didn't. I can't remember. Human. I think it was just Human.
Haven't heard of it.
Yeah, it only lasted one season.
A lot of competition out there.
Yeah. So that's all that I had. Preacher comes back August 5th.
Yay. It's going to be hard to let Cassidy and Tulip and Jesse go, but I'm glad that we got one more season out of it.
Yes, definitely. And Hair Star. All right. So that's all that I had.
Okay. Well, tell me what your good was for the episode.
The kids.
Oh, that's funny.
I knew they were up to no good.
I expected them to be your bad.
No, I love being right. But I do think it's interesting that, I had mentioned that I did kind of like Annie's character, that she seemed like she could really take care of herself. And now we know that, they're the ones behind all of the walkers that are strung together. We haven't yet seen if they are the ones that are hanging the heads.
Okay. Question. Are the kids working alone, or are they working with CRM?
I don't know. And that was my thing with CRM is I can't imagine that they're in the area and that is like their territory, and that they're not working with CRM. So there's been no indication that they are, but I can't see how they wouldn't be. So that'll be interesting to play out. But I love that my sort of distrust in children came to fruition, and they really are duplicitous little brats.
I have to say, I was totally sucked in. I didn't think they were being duplicitous. Good word.
So yeah, and it kind of did answer a question about, how do they string the zombies together like that without getting bit? And it's still a mystery how they get the zombies, where they get them to like tie their hands behind their backs to a pole, but they are wearing protective gear, and they keeping them away with almost like a dog catcher's pole.
That's very similar to what Herschel used when he was capturing zombies in season 2.
Right. That's right. So yeah, I love the story. It totally makes the kids more interesting. Now I'm totally okay with the kids being on the show because
because they're evil.
They're evil. Yes. It proves my point.
And if they're not working with CRM, what is their motivation for keeping the adults away from them?
Right. So I actually wrote that down. They want to make sure that they never bother us again. So wouldn't you like, it's not like there's child services in the zombie apocalypse. Like, you could tell the adults to bugger off, and what are they going to do? Kidnap you? I mean, they could, but they're going to keep you kidnapped? That's just way too much work. Yeah, more effort than it's worth. So Yeah, why do they want to keep them away if they aren't with CRM?
I think it has the potential to be an interesting storyline.
Me too.
Mm-hmm. I'm happy with that.
I am also. I'm happy with all of the storylines this episode.
Ah, very good.
So what was your good?
So my good was that I enjoyed the use of Old West props. So oh, go ahead.
The horse was fake.
Yes, I actually had that written down that you and I were fooled by the horse from last week. That horse actually looks a little bit like our mayor, Moon.
Yes.
Which kind of cracked me up.
That's funny.
But I liked the player piano as the distraction for the zombies.
I did too.
I thought the walker getting shot and falling into the horse trough was really funny. I liked that.
Oh, I must have looked away for a second.
It happens when when they're trying to get to Dwight, when they're kind of trying to clear the roadway or the main road at the end.
Yeah.
And then of course the zombies all being distracted by the windmill.
I liked that too. It was the noise and the motion from the windmill, and of course it is the noisiest thing and it's moving. I'm surprised not that they could keep up, but I was surprised that there wasn't one like following a tumbleweed.
I'll talk more about the tumbleweed.
Okay.
That did not make my list of good props.
It was a little hokey, but it was quintessential for the Old West town.
That was exactly the word that I wrote down. Hokey.
Quintessential.
No, hokey. All right. So what was your bad?
My bad was, why was Dory so insistent that they had to leave the safety and comfort basically of I'm going to say saloon that they were in, to go back out into the storm, to leave, to get back to everyone. It was super dangerous to try and do that in this dust storm. I've never been in a dust storm, but they always look pretty bad to me. Mm-hmm. And your radios weren't working at the time and you couldn't see. And what was his motivation? That's like, no, we have to go out there. Like, I thought that was stupid, that we couldn't just stay here until the storm blows over.
Yeah, thinking about it, I can't really see that there was a huge motivation to get out of there that quickly.
Yeah.
Or
that just... Huh. Yeah. And it didn't have to be that way. They could have introduced Dwight, him like coming into the saloon or shooting through a window, or they could have driven them out, by like having the walkers come through the door like they did. Because I was like, all you have to do is either stay away from the windows or cover the windows and keep quiet. And all of the walkers are going to be distracted by the storm. They're not going to really be able to see or hear you. And especially if like you go upstairs or something, I don't understand why he was so driven to leave there. It didn't make sense to me.
Yeah, so it was more of a plot device, but not something really logical.
Right, and it didn't even need to be a plot device. They didn't even need to go out into the storm to have Dwight start shooting at them. So that was my bad.
Well, I'm going to take a page from your book, and first I'm going to tell you what my bad was going to be, but what it actually was not. So, talking about the tumbleweed... I really, the first time I watched this, struggled with the whole contrivance of getting them into an Old West town. I was like, really? We're just doing this so we can have another specific set and so we can show John Dory as a cowboy and a gunslinger. And I was I was more than a little bit turned off. I was pretty turned off. The spaghetti Western music, the San Antonio split... But, the second time I watched it, I decided to totally let it go, enjoy it, I recognize that I am suspending my disbelief by believing in zombies, so I'm gonna let it go and enjoy the whole Old West thing. And I enjoyed it much, much more.
Well, and they are in Texas, and that's where you would find one of those Wild West shows.
Mm-hmm.
And there's like quote unquote abandoned towns all over. I mean, TripAdvisor has like the 15 ghost towns you must see before you leave Texas. So, yeah, I think it was clever, and it got them to more guns. I was very, very surprised that the town was in as good a shape, that stuff wasn't ransacked and somebody hadn't broken open that flimsy locker. That is no way to secure guns, by the way.
Right. If June can pick it with a hairpin, we're in big trouble.
Right? That's seriously I have one of those metal lockers in our shed that holds all of our combustible liquids. It's outside of the house, but it's still in the shed, and it's in a metal cabinet. And those things, if you pull hard enough on those handles, that thing will just pop right open. So
that was gonna be my bad.
And I had a little bit of similar experience.
Oh, no. But I'm not done.
Okay, but I just wanted to say I had a little bit of I didn't like them being the initial part, especially when June was going through the whole southern pinky pole and San Antonio's. I was very annoyed, but I will, full disclosure, I was trying to do work on a work laptop at the time, and I was very frustrated with the work laptop. And so upon the rewatch, I also gained a little bit more calm.
You were not in the right frame of mind.
No, I was not.
Which is definitely where I was with the season premiere, so I can relate to that.
Yeah. And so, like, when I rewatched it tonight, I was just fresh from a massage, so I was all good.
So it was all great.
Good. Yeah. So what really was your bad?
So what really was my bad was another week without Wendell, Sarah, and Charlie.
Oh,
and
yeah.
No payoff after the big setup with Logan.
Right.
So, they've got this relatively well-known actor who's got a lot of stuff to his credit, and they're not using him.
Right. Yeah. And I thought that it was just sort of maybe somebody hadn't edited the IMDb page yet, that he wasn't credited in more episodes. But are we really? That's all we're going to see of it? The only thing I can think of is we're setting everything up to go back there with Dwight and Shelley and, maybe a kid or CRM. I mean, we have to find Al first. So, yeah, I think it's weird that we had such a big actor and poof.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, it's going through episodes and not getting the story of what everyone's doing. And especially because we haven't seen the other characters almost at all. They've had some very minor spots in these first 3 episodes.
Right. I mean, Strand got quite a bit of time last episode, but we've barely seen Sarah, Wendell, and Charlie. And I really, really like Sarah and Wendell as characters.
I do too. I remember when they were introducing them as characters, and just Sarah's colloquialisms, we should call it, just the stir the beef and everything. I remember enjoying that last
season. Right.
So, yeah, I miss those two.
Yeah, I do too. I hope that they get some time next episode.
Yeah, me too.
All right, rolling into your ugly. What's your ugly for this week?
Dwight and Morgan meet up.
Aha!
That was so cool. So earlier in the episode, when they were saving Dwight, when John was saving Dwight, and Dwight referred to the zombies as walkers, it was pointed out to me that it caught John Dory's attention that he said walkers. And my other half said it was because that's what Morgan called him.
Oh, interesting.
I was like,
I wondered why he kind of was startled by that.
Yeah, and it's like they didn't refer to them as walkers until Morgan came along. And so when this guy uses the same vernacular, it caught John Dory off guard. But that had to be pointed out to me because I was like, well, everyone kind of calls them something different, but there is kind of a limited range of what you could call them, biters, walkers, shamblers, the dead, because we can't use the Z word. Mm-hmm. There's only so many things. So I would imagine that people all over would call them the same thing without having to meet up. It's kind of like the way around before mass media around the world, everyone kind of, described the same UFO object in the sky because really there can be only so many.
It did get me wondering and trying to rack my brain. What do our fear characters call the walkers? I can't remember. It's been so long since I've heard anybody directly refer to any of them.
Yeah. I'd have to go back and watch an early episode, which you can do on Hulu.
All 4 seasons.
But when Morgan and Dwight finally did meet up, I really, if I were one of the observers like Alicia or anyone else who was there, I can't think of anyone else who was there besides Alicia because they did focus in on her. Mm-hmm. But when they met up, it wasn't like 2 old friends who hadn't seen each other. There was no hug. There was no handshake. There was no, man, how you been doing? How'd you, it was very, it wasn't tense, but it was very tentative. It's like they were both kind of, getting the feel for each other and, they slowly moved into each other's bubble, eventually. But it wasn't tense. It wasn't that, there was, these guys were enemies or anything. And of course, eventually, there was, Dwight kind of trying to apologize for his behavior and Morgan being like, hey, we all did stuff and that's in the past. And I know how things turned out for you. So, it's all good. Basically let us help you and come with us. So, but it was just, had I been an observer there, I would have been like, what's the deal with these 2?
Right. Because Morgan really kind of closed the door on any conversation around their past.
Right.
Which it sounds like, based on what the showrunner teased, that's not going to be the case. They're going to have to talk about their past.
Oh, I think so. That he's kind of broached it a little bit when he was talking to June and John. So, but I think we'll go back to, we've all had to do stuff to survive to where we are now. So, yeah. So that was my ugly. It was a good ugly. I thought it was really interesting the way they introduced him. It wasn't old friends meeting up and it wasn't enemies facing each other. So it was a little interesting.
Well, that was part of my good ugly because I did love the reunion between the 2 of them. But my overall good ugly was just Dwight. I'm so happy to have him back. I didn't realize what a deep affection I have for this character.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And he just evokes such strong emotion one way or another. We hated him when we were on Easy Street and eating dog food sandwiches. But, now we feel for him and I'm rooting for him to find Sherry.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I really liked the way that Austin Emilio played it. Very worn down, emotional, vulnerable, crying. I really liked seeing that aspect of Dwight's character.
Yeah.
And I will point out to people that this is light years from the arc that Dwight actually has in the comic book series.
Yes, it definitely is. But I love that they can do this with this character, that they can cross over into a show that has no source material and do anything that they want. Not that they don't do anything that they want on the Prime show.
Right.
But yeah, I'm getting everything I wanted. I wanted the Dwight show, the epic search for Sherry.
So let's just get into rotting potpourri. Let's start with Sherry. I really expected to have some sort of solid answer. Either Sherry's dead, Sherry's gone, he never found any trace of her, or they were reunited. I didn't expect the ongoing, oh, I'm just 2 or 3 steps behind her, and here's another note from her directing me this way or that way.
Yeah, how does she keep moving, and why?
Mm-hmm.
Why doesn't she try and stay in one place long enough? Like, she could have stayed in Humbug's Gulch, and I think it's odd. There has to be more to it. Like, she's with another group of people that are traveling around, or maybe she's just afraid that, Negan sent somebody after her and she has to keep on the move.
Well, and now with what the showrunners teased about there being driving forces that brought Dwight and Morgan to the same place, I kind of wonder if Sherry's not part of that story.
Yeah. Is she, maybe CRM picked her up?
Mm-hmm.
She's in that area.
That definitely crossed my mind.
But I thought it was weird. I actually went back and paused the registration that had her message on it, West on 30, and it not being the registration for the minivan that they were in. It still was the exact same minivan. If you pause it, you can see that it's a tan minivan. And the person had to pay a $22.50 late fee for their registration. But it's like, what are the odds that she's like, this tan minivan broke down. Look, there's another tan minivan,
Well, I have to say, part of me was like, what are the odds that Dwight would find exactly the car that Sherry was in, like the actual car? So it goes both ways,
Right? Except it's one of those things. Police actually are very hesitant to give out color descriptions of like Amber Alert cars or, getaway vehicles or anything like that, because if they tell you that they're looking for a red Jeep, you will see red Jeeps everywhere.
Right. And nothing but red Jeeps.
Right. And they get hundreds and hundreds of false calls on, and so they try and give more specific information, of course, like the license plate or, that maybe what the driver looks like in the Jeep. So, so next time you're driving, count all the red Jeep or the tan minivans, and you will find a ton of them. So I feel like there's not a whole lot of tan minivans running around Juneau. It's mostly dark green Subaru Foresters.
Oh, that's funny.
Or gray Toyotas.
I'd have to say there are a lot of Priuses in this area.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh. Interesting.
Yeah. I think it's because there's so much driving. I mean, when you have that far to drive, 50 miles to the gallon sounds pretty appealing.
Yeah, but you guys don't maintain your roads like we do here.
No, and having had a Prius, it is not the ideal climate in the winter to drive a Prius.
Definitely not.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, they maintain the roads here because we have 2 roads. Seriously, we have the main road to get on the one highway that's 4 lanes. And that's pretty much it. The rest are city side streets, and the city can plow everything just fine before everyone goes to work. We may have a delayed start, but rarely is work ever called off, or school in the wintertime. The only time school is called off is actually because they can't get to the sidewalks, so the kids can't safely walk to school.
Oh, that's funny.
They'll have kids walking on the road, which I think is fine, but whatever. But Prius in Alaska, no thanks.
Right. Learned my lesson. Kind of like a minivan in Humbug's Gulch.
Right? Which, okay, let's get into that. You can drive a vehicle on flat tires. Not well, but you can. So the only thing I can think of is Dwight couldn't move because he didn't have the keys. And it surprises me that Dwight wouldn't be able to hotwire a car. And not because, like, I'm judging him or anything, but if he didn't have that skill before the apocalypse, I'm sure someone in Sanctuary had that skill and kind of spread that knowledge around.
But it was so much more depressing to have him get stuck in a car surrounded by walkers, a la Aaron and Daryl when they got stuck at the Wolves compound where they had all of those walkers in rigs.
The cannery.
Yes.
Yep. Yeah. I think we've had people stuck in cars a couple of times, but I feel like he could have driven in that. And I also know that there was a better way of taking care of the walkers around the van. So for one, you could drive up to the van and have all the walkers get distracted by you, the two scrumptious people in the cars, and just start honking your horn and lead them away until Dwight can get out and go into another building, and then just flip a Yui and pull up and pick him up. Like, I just feel like it was a huge waste of ammo, but of course we had to have John Dory's trick shots. So
I was going to say, we would not have had the San Antonio split.
Right. I get it. We had to display the skill, but the practical zombie prepper in me is just like, you're wasting so much ammo. There was a way better way to do that. You know, they waste so much ammo. It's just not going to last forever, guys.
Okay, while we're on the subject of John Dory, I love Garrett Dillahunt, right? I'm not saying that I don't love Garrett Dillahunt.
You mean Six Gun Sam?
The dude needs to enunciate.
Oh my goodness. I said this exact same thing. I thought that I was just being bratty. I'll say bratty. Because my work laptop was annoying me, but I called him Boomhauer from King of the Hill because he just mumbles and does not enunciate. Oh, it was driving me nuts. I need closed caption. He sounds like
he's got a mouthful of hot potatoes all the time.
Yes, I agree. I need subtitles.
Yes.
Yeah.
And his character, what little I have seen of Deadwood, was like that in Deadwood too. You just couldn't understand what the heck he was saying.
And in Raising Hope, he kind of has the same accent, the same kind of speech pattern. So, but I've seen interviews and I don't think that's him.
So for the love of God, Garrett, we love you and we'd like to hear all of your lines.
Yes. Without rewinding 3 times.
Yes.
Yeah.
Did you notice that the new credits took up a whole page instead of just part of the page like they have for the last 2 episodes?
I didn't. I'm going to have to go back and look.
And we had a windstorm and the tumbleweed.
Right. Tumbleweed.
I never thought I would be saying the word tumbleweed in a Walking Dead episode.
Well, I mean, growing up in Alaska, we don't have tumbleweeds. Like, things do not dry up and die and blow away here. They actually usually, like, get too moist and they, like, disintegrate into the earth. So tumbleweeds were an entirely foreign thing to me until I went to probably central or eastern Washington.
See, I
Which,
grew up there, so they were not
yeah,
foreign to me.
yeah, it's high desert. So yeah, it's one of those things that you think that, and really some towns have a serious problem with them building up along fences and stuff, but it's kind of like when you think of Texas, you think tumbleweed. When you think of Alaska, you think igloo, and that's not all there is to it.
I'm going to tell you what I told myself the second time I watched it, which is just let go and enjoy the silliness.
Yes. Yep. And I definitely got the spaghetti Western feel. I am not a huge spaghetti Western fan. At least the old ones. I find that and I know this is probably blasphemous to somebody out there, but like the new Magnificent Seven, the Hateful Eight, God, there's been a couple of them in the past few years that I'm like, okay, I didn't used to be a Western person, but now I kind of like them.
I kind of went through a Clint Eastwood phase for a while because one of my boyfriends was really into the outlaw Josie Wales.
Ah.
So, but that was a long time ago.
That's funny.
I will say, on a little different subject, I do appreciate that Lucy may have some sequela of her injury. She is still not able to move that arm. And I also like that they had her face all bruised up and she actually was showing some residual effects from her accident.
Yeah, I like that she isn't severely injured in episode 1 and then just has like a tiny little scar over her eyebrow in episode 3.
Right.
That's how it's usually done. Yes, I appreciate the malingering injury.
I think they're going to continue to play that out.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, who was shooting? So I guess it must have been John Dory that was shooting at June and John before they got to Humbug's Gulch. Who was shooting at Alicia? And no, I guess there weren't shots at Alicia. They hit that rumble strip, the nail strip.
Well, and then somebody was shooting at them. I thought.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think it was the kids. It was either the kids or CRM.
Well, so that's kind of what I was wondering.
Because of course it was Dwight shooting at John Dory and
June.
Yes.
Oh, I did want to say, I also loved when June and John Dory drove through the perimeter, the zombie roadblock, that gut splatter. That was really good.
Yeah, and I'm like, why were we taking the time to kill the zombies the other way and cut them down? Or cut them apart, I guess.
When you can just drive through them.
I mean... Maybe it's like all of the zombie video games where you the more you hit the zombies, the more damage you do to your car. Yeah, maybe that's it.
So did you catch Dory calling June Junebug?
Yes.
I thought that was cute. Yeah.
And speaking of the zombies being strung together, I thought that they were strung together by their intestines.
Well, that's what I thought too.
Okay, and my other half thinks it's just gory rope.
No, of course I think it's intestines.
Okay, so and I feel, was the car, the van that Dylan was in, was that also wrapped in intestines?
I don't know, but I definitely think the biters were attached to each other by intestines. When you look at the contours of the stuff that they're held together by, it just looks like guts.
Okay, I think so too. And speaking as a medical professional, would that be the large intestine or the small intestine? That looked large to me.
No. The large intestine is basically just like the last 6 feet of the intestinal tract.
Okay. Because the
And by the way, it's got to be guts because Dory makes the joke about the bowel blockade.
Oh, yes.
So,
Okay.
take it, James.
So the human intestine, the small intestine, is about 20 feet long, and the large intestine is about 5 feet long.
So I remember 27 and 6, but it's in the ballpark.
I was going to say it probably depends on the size of the human.
Sure, people can have redundant bowel.
Right. So you've got 25 feet, about 25 feet of human rope to work with. That's a lot.
Mm-hmm. Although I don't know how tough the intestines would be.
Yeah, I agree. And especially if it's coming from someone who's been dead for like a year or two.
Good point. Good point.
Yeah.
Willing suspension of disbelief.
Exactly.
Because I do like the bowel blockade.
I like those, but I just the heads in the trees, I just love the chattering teeth. It's so creepy.
I wonder if we're going to find out if... I don't think the kids were responsible for it because I don't think that they got back to the truck stop.
Right, and hung them from the billboard.
So I think the kids are responsible for the guts and CRM is responsible for the heads.
Okay. I will have to agree because that there were a lot of heads in that first tree. And that's just a lot of work. I mean, I know the kids have nothing but time on their hands, but they're expending a lot of calories. And so I'm just like, God, like, I can't imagine that they're doing both. So we shall find out, I'm sure.
So speaking of our evil kids, Alicia got to give the pep talk this week. Actually, Alicia and June both got to give pep talks this week.
I actually wrote down Alicia gets to make the speech this time.
I wrote lots of speechifying.
Yeah.
So, but I was thinking about Alicia's speech, and I think that it's going to have a really big negative impact on her, that she opened herself up and made herself vulnerable to these kids, and they turn out to be stinkers.
Agreed. You know, she lucked out with Charlie, but I think it's going to be a big blow to her that these kids are evil.
I'm looking forward to seeing where we go with the kids. But yes, I think that's going to be tough for Alicia, especially because she talked about her brother and her mom.
Right.
God. Oh, go ahead.
We got a lot going this season. We have the kids. We have CRM. We have Strand. We have Sherry. We have whatever is driving Morgan and Dwight together. There's just a lot to unpack this season.
We have Logan.
We have Logan, maybe.
We have Wendell, Sarah, and Charlie somewhere. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts for this season.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm actually feeling more enthusiastic about them than I was for the first two. So
I am too. Like I said, I loved all of the storylines in this episode. And I loved them so much that I forgot about Wendell and Charlie. And I hope we get to check in on them and that they get a cool storyline too.
I will have to say that I thought in some ways it was a little cruel for John and June to kind of keep holding their relationship up as what Dwight's could be when he finds Sherry again, because I think that's a lot of false hope.
Yeah.
But I also liked what John said to June about needing to hear what she said to Dwight about deserving Sherry. And when he said, by doubting it, referring to his relationship with June, I'm taking it away from you and from me. I thought that was a really good line. He just talked about how important it was to appreciate the relationship that he and June have.
Yeah, I feel like them talking to Dwight about, what John Dory did to find June and what he thought, when he shot off the guy's finger, when he thought that the guy had done something to her. And then June saying what she said over the walkie-talkie to Dwight. I almost feel like they were not just telling Dwight, they were telling each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a tough thing. You have to walk the line between giving him false hope and keeping him motivated. Because I really thought Dwight was going to be a one and done this episode. I thought he was going to put that gun in his mouth, and I also thought that he got bit.
I'm so glad you were wrong.
Me too.
It would have been really terrible to have him as a crossover and then have kind of a Morales moment where he's there and gone.
Right, because I am operating under the assumption that our crossover characters are at some point going to cross back over.
I'm not sure, although with the introduction of CRM and the links to Rick, that's possible.
That, and it's rumored that Fear the Walking Dead is going to take a large time jump.
I haven't heard that rumor, so that's cool.
We could catch back up with Prime. So I operate under the assumption that at least one of our crossover characters will at some point cross back. I think that would be cool.
I hope it's Morgan.
Yeah, I do too. But Dwight would be okay.
So I have one little gripe about this episode, and then I think I'm done with Rotting Potpourri.
Alrighty.
How did it suddenly become night and dark in Humbug's Gulch? I kind of felt like that was some lazy writing.
I feel like we've complained about this before, where it's like we flash on one group and it's bright daylight, and then we flash on another group like 6 miles away and it's pitch black. Yeah. Yeah, I think somebody wasn't thinking ahead on the storyboard.
Yeah, it just got very dark, very sudden.
Right.
And again, so hard to see when it gets dark like that.
I don't think I had that problem. You have a brand new TV.
I know. It was still very dark.
You need to go in and adjust your settings, especially if you're going to be watching the last season of Game of Thrones.
Okay, good to know before I get to that point.
Oh, yeah, the Battle at Winterfell. That's not the title of the episode, but that's what goes on. And it was like, it made national headlines that it was too dark. And I was like, I seem to remember us complaining about Walking Dead Prime being too dark a number of times. We had listener feedback that said the same thing, that you couldn't see anything.
I've got to tell you, though, season 8 of Game of Thrones, I'm going to be looking for that Starbucks cup.
Depending on where you view it, they did edit it out of the re-airing episode.
Actually, I do think I remember hearing that.
There is also a water bottle in the final episode.
Oh, that's funny.
A plastic water bottle. Somebody has it. They're sitting in a chair and they have it down at their feet, and you can see about half of it.
Oh, lazy.
I'm pretty sure there's like a car or an airplane in the very distance in one of the what's the Bilbo Baggins, the Hobbit.
Oh, one of the Hobbit movies?
Yeah, in one of the Hobbit movies. Like, I think it's so interesting when those like are immediately picked out. People are way more observant than I am about those things.
I agree.
That is all I had for the episode.
I don't have anything else, but dang, we talked again for a long time.
We did, and I feel like this episode was particularly loquacious. I feel like we have
been watching Good Omens.
I feel like we used a lot of $6 words in this episode.
I think you used more $6 words than I did. I didn't know what humbug meant.
Neither did I. I looked it up too. But I felt it like it had to mean something.
I'm glad I looked it up. I learned something.
Yeah. And I think it really kind of fits with our duplicitous kids.
Yes, I think so too. I thought that was a good catch.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I guess we're going to wrap it up until next week.
Yep. Until then, just remember, take it one dead day
at a time. Very
All
good.
Right. We're getting better. It's only taken us 5 years.
Right. All right, everybody, have a good week.
Bye.
Bye.